Tyler Smith, a guy who I'm a big fan of. I liked him enough last year where I would have took him in the lottery. He was the only player in the draft that had 40 dunks and 43s in the season. I actually told him, I said, man, you need to be around Dame or Giannis. If you can stick to those guys and just learn from them, you'll be fine. So I do think that he has a bright future. I like the skill set, but I said if his name was like Tyler Smithovich and he was from Serbia.
Five-time All-Star Marques Johnson.
Alongside Marques Johnson.
What's up, everybody? Hey, this is the Here District, captain of this vessel. And I got my first mate, my number one son,
Kris Johnson.
What up?
Talk to me.
Holla! Let it rain, man. Let it rain.
I guess they go, guess what? We're going back into Jeff Friday.
Yeah. Can't pass us all the breakfast.
Can't pass us all the breakfast.
Go fight. Welcome everybody to the Here District, Marques Johnson.
You're listening to a Bucks Plus audio production on the Bucks Plus Network.
Your weekly pulse on the Milwaukee Bucks, straight from a Bucks legend. This is Here District with Marques Johnson, alongside his son and 1995 NCAA champion, Kris. Here's MJ.
All right, welcome everybody to Here District. I am the captain of this vessel, Marques Johnson. I got my first mate, Kris Johnson. Rafael, just bear with us. We got to go through this little shtick first at the start of every show. But we're the only father and son to win a national championship at the same school in the NCAA. A lot of guys, not a lot, a few guys have won championships, father-son tandems, but we hold the distinction of being the only father and son to win one at the same school. So that's going to be always ours, Rafael, and no one can take that away from us. And Rafael Barlowe, well, we welcome you to the show. He's the owner and director of Scouting, NBA Big Board, host of Locked on NBA Big Board podcast. He's formerly worked in basketball operations in the G League and has really great insight in terms of what's coming up. This is our draft preview show. And Rafael, we've got one thing in common, man. One thing in common. You know what that is? We got one thing in common.
Probably more than one. I know we both love our sons, and hopefully me and my son can be what you guys are doing.
Well, no, not that. No, that was close. That was close. Okay. Close, but horseshoes and hand grenades. No. Of course I love my son. I love all my sons. I got enough of them to love five sons.
How many you got?
I've got 5. last count. No. I've got five beautiful sons, enough to start a basketball team, as I hear all the time. But here, Rafael, this is what we have in common, man. And when I heard you say this, I had a natural gravitational affinity for you and your basketball evaluation skills.
Okay.
There's one player that you said you saw early on, a couple of years ago. You're in Toledo, looking at Toledo play against some unknown D2 or something. You saw a player that just jumped off the page at you. Who was that?
Ryan Rollins.
All right, let's go. We'll go through it for me. What was it about Ryan Rollins that just really got your heart to a flutter watching him play?
I was in Detroit, and a friend of mine's like, "Hey man, let's go check out this kid, Ryan Rollins." It's like, all right, it was a short drive, and it ended up being Ryan's agent, and Ryan wasn't signed with him at the time, and it was just a game against it may have been an NAIA school. It was a preseason game, and statistically, he didn't have a monster game, but just the pace, the way he got to his mid-range pull-up, and he just looked like a pro. Like he just stood out in that setting. And so from there, I tracked him the rest of the year. And then I want to say maybe about February, March, I was like, you know what, I'm confident in my assessment. This guy's a first-round pick. And I think I had him as a first-round pick at that time. He ended up being a second-round pick, but I caught a little flack for it because I was working with Chad Ford at the time. And Chad is, he was the founder of NBA Big Board before he passed it on to me. And he wasn't familiar with Ryan. And he thought I was putting my homeboy up on the big board and talking about somebody that was a close friend of mine.
Like you had a cut, you get a cut from the contract or something.
Yeah. So, and he was kind of thrown off by it because he wasn't familiar with them. And then he made some phone calls, and I guess some scouts or GMs were like, "No, Rafael, exactly right. He could go in that range." So that was big for me as far as feeling like one of the first people to really talk about Ryan publicly.
Yeah, and for me, so it was training camp. First couple of days, we had it out at UC Irvine. I was in L.A. where I live. And so I drove out to Irvine, the hour-long drive, watching the first couple of days of camp, man, and this long-armed, Afro-sporting, athletic 6'3" guard, but he had basketball savvy. Yep. He just looked like he belonged out on the floor with the Dame Lillards and Giannis and all these other people. And coming in, I think he spent a year with Golden State, kind of their G League system. So that had to help him being around that kind of situation. But that's when I came out and said, this guy's gonna make this team. I mean, he's got that kind of presence. He's got NBA presence. Let me put it. A lot of guys have skill. But it's an NBA presence that certain guys have. And Ryan Rollins, man, he had it. You think being in the Golden State system along with Steph and Clay and those guys that were there when he was there, how much of an impact do you think that could have on a young guy like Ryan Rollins?
I think they had an impact, but I think it starts before that. He was a late bloomer. He wasn't someone that, people were talking about when he was in 10th grade. So there's like this it's like a quiet chip on his shoulder that he has. And so he's confident, but at the same time, by him not being someone that everybody like crowned early, I think that makes it easier for him to be a sponge and want to learn. So, like kids nowadays, man, if you're good, you get invited to like the Steph Curry camps and all these camps, and you may be friends with Kevin Durant when you're like 15 years old. And for Ryan,
you're texting KD and you're texting. Yeah.
They're trying to get you to wear their shoes or whatever. And so for a guy like Ryan, he probably didn't have that. I mean, he went to Toledo. He wasn't like crazy highly recruited. So for him, it was probably like, I got to be a sponge. I have to do what it takes to stick. And so there's probably like no sense of entitlement. And I think that really helps guys out, especially young guys that are trying to make their way into the league.
Rafael, when you project guys, their ceiling, and you look at a guy like Ryan Rollins, you take all the underdog factor, the chip on the shoulder factor. And now how big of a deal is it when you're projecting the guy's long-term future as a scout that he does come from an underdog kind of DNA and underdog upbringing versus a guy that might have, one of those blue blood type pedigrees? Like, where do you draw the line? Is it physical intangibles? Is it something you see a performance, against a common opponent? Like, where do you draw the line on that?
I mean, it's a case by case scenario. Sometimes guys that have been like the dude from day one, I think it's like a harder adjustment for them to play a role and to learn how to have to fit around guys. I mean, I'm familiar with your family background. So like you were a star. I remember you were a star. What, were you the class of 97?
I was 98 in college, but class of 94 in high school.
94 in high school. I don't know why I got that mixed up. So anyway, but I do remember like reading about you and Street Smith.
Yeah.
And so everybody was like good. But when you went to UCLA, you had to learn how to play with better players, and it had to scale down a bit. And it happens at every level. And so I think some guys, we see it in high school to college, and we see it from guys that are stars in college. Like maybe their game is best suited when they need a bunch of dribbles to score. They got to bounce it, and they can't come in and play with a guy like Giannis where you might not get 3 dribbles. So with that being said, sometimes I look at the guys that are underdogs that, I mean, they may have been featured in college. They've had to like work their way up to different levels. And I think sometimes it can be easier for them to come in and play a complementary role as opposed to a guy that, was the man from day one and he's always been featured. And now he goes to a situation and he's not featured. And it's a real struggle and adjustment on top of all the, professional, leaps that guys have to make. So sometimes I like the underdogs because I think it's an easier fit.
Well, and Ryan also had, and it's common knowledge, it's public knowledge, let me put it that way, maybe not common, but had some adversity to go through. And he went through that. I think guys like Kevin Porter Jr., some adversity to go through. I think guys like that, Rafael, that get us, I won't say a second chance, but that adversity doesn't speak so negatively about them and their character that they don't get a chance to really play in the NBA. I think when you get that opportunity like Ryan has had, I think they really embrace that even more wholeheartedly than guys who have not gone through similar adversity. Adversity can be a good thing if channeled and directed properly.
Yep, and it just shows like you really have to be able to play to get a second chance. Because if they don't think you can play,
That's real talk like kicking off.
Yes.
Yeah, you're not getting a second chance if they don't think you can play. I mean, we've seen it. I mean, there's guys one strike and they're done. So
yeah.
Sometimes the adversity is good, and for some guys, it's like it's over for them after that.
Yeah, trust me. I'm not saying that you have to go out there and seek some adversity to be successful. But if it does happen and you're good, and then you get that second opportunity, that's a situation you can flourish in. All right, so let's talk about these Bucks, man. The Bucks got the 47th pick in the draft. Pulled up a few names of some guys who were picked 47th who didn't turn out too badly. On the court, at least. Paul Millsap on the court. Vernon Maxwell? No. Vernon Maxwell was a heck of a player.
That's cool, man.
I love Mad Max. I'm giving Mad Max. I'm giving him some grief. His recent podcast history with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson has been very, very entertaining for me. But Gerald Wilkins was a 47th pick. Now, this guy, I'm going to tell you something else you didn't know, Rafael. I was at a family reunion. These young kids come running up to me and saying, "You got a cousin that's going to UCLA." I'm like, "Yeah, who is that?" They brought him over, and it was Tyus Edney. And Tyus Edney was all about 5'9". I'm like, "Oh, okay, he's going to play basketball at UCLA." Okay, right, sure. But then that freshman year, man, he turned the Indiana game around and really did well.
Yeah,
so 47th pick, yes.
Quick on that, to remember, because I was at the family reunion with you. So the thing, Raf, about Tyus, 5'9", small, little, about 160, right? But we were playing like this family reunion game of volleyball. Mm-hmm. And if, you play volleyball. So Tyus is literally getting a chest over the top of the net. I saw about a 42, 43-inch vertical on a 5'9" dude. That's when I knew, MJ, that this dude's for real.
So Tyus, 47th pick, Svi Mihailuk. So the point is that you can get some value. Now, let's keep it real. It's difficult. It's a challenge. It doesn't happen very often, but you can find some guys at that pick that can really help your team. And I don't want to ask you the tired question of where do you think the Bucks are going? But what do you think? You think the Bucks? You're looking at this draft, and I heard you talk about the tiers in this draft weren't as deep as past drafts because of NIL money and a bunch of guys going back to school. You think the Bucks should hold steady at 47 and roll the dice, or you think it's worth trying to move up in the second round if that opportunity presents itself?
Yeah, I think it's always worth trying to move up. But for a team like the Bucks, I think this draft, because of the NIL, you're not really doing what they did last year. Last year, they drafted A.J. Johnson, who was young. It's kind of like it was the biggest shock for me. Swing for the fences, and then Tyler Smith, a guy who I'm a big fan of. I liked him enough last year where I would have took him in the lottery. He was the only player in the draft that had, I forgot the exact number, 40 dunks and 43s in a season. And, that's all the NBA is right now, is they want you to score in the paint or outside. And he was the only one that had, that volume on both. A little young, but good kid. And I think that, I actually told him, I said, man, you need to be around Dame or Giannis. If you can stick to those guys and just learn from them, you'll be fine. So I do think that he has a bright future because he can shoot. He has the size, and he's he can post up too once he gets stronger. But I like the skill set. I made a joke and some people took it the wrong way and said I was being racist. But I said if his name was like Tyler Smithovich and he was from Serbia.
well, the first guy I heard say that was a UCLA shooter. He says, "My name was Jason Kaponovich."
Kaponovich, that's where I got it.
If I was Jason Kaponovich, I'd be like the top 3 picks in the draft. But because
that's
I'm from,
exactly where I got it from
Artesia High School in LA, Kaponovich. But listen, Tyler. So Tyler's going to Greece. Tyler Smith, Stanley Moody's going to Greece. Chris Livingston, Andre Jackson Jr., Pete Nance, Jamari Bouye. I got the names. I mentioned a couple of guys that aren't going this year. But I think that time with Giannis in Greece, Giannis is bringing them all over, going to work out for a good solid week to 10 days, man. And I like Tyler. Hopefully that things like that will help him continue to progress up the developmental scale. So he's a good young talent.
He's looking good. He's looking good in the drills I saw this summer.
Yeah.
So
now with this draft, you're not going to find 18-year-olds in the second round because of NIL. It makes absolutely no sense for you to be 18 and stay in the draft if you don't have a top 25, maybe even top 20 range. So with that being said, I think at 47, the Bucks are more than likely to get someone that if they do make the team that they can contribute, because it's going to be somebody that has 90 to 100 games of college experience under their belt, and they're probably more prepared to come in and play as opposed to the young guy that's 18. He's not strong enough. He's just not ready to come in and contribute. So I don't think 47 is a bad spot, especially with this year, because like I said, there's not a lot of freshmen that are young guys that were willing to bet on themselves.
Well, and also explain the Austin Reeves dynamic, that what he did, and that's another factor that's involved in the talent pool that's available.
Yeah, so the Austin Reeves, first of all, it takes big guts to do what Austin Reeves did, which was trust his agents who told him, hey, man, you're going to miss out on getting your name called, but we think there's the best situation for you, that the Lakers don't have a lot of room as far as to bring in other guys financially, and they're going to need some guys that are on lower end salaries to come in and contribute. And if I remember correctly, there were some teams that were willing to draft Austin and maybe put him on the two-way, but he said he wanted more than that or whatever. It was a big risk. I mean, you work your whole life to hear your name called at the NBA draft, and he chose not to have his name called, and his agents, Aaron Riley and my guy Reg, they had a game plan for him. Very risky. I'll tell you that. Very risky, but Austin believed, and they thought that the Lakers would be a good fit. He ended up making a team, and if I'm not mistaken, he got his contract converted from maybe a two-way to a standard contract, and he's in position to get paid. So it is a possibility. And if I were an agent, and sometimes I like to think like an agent, it's just fun to me to put my thought process in the mind of an agent. The Bucks, especially if my client is a shooter, the Bucks would be a team that I would do something similar. Like, hey, the money's a little tight there, but I think that you complement Giannis. You have what they need, and this would be a good fit for you. But the Bucks actually have a pick, but if it were a situation where they didn't, the Bucks would be a team that I would try to make that gamble on.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both, the undrafted free agent and in this 47 spot. You threw some names out there. I listened to a podcast you did with Camille on Locked On. Mm-hmm. I love the name Kobe Brea. You mentioned, I've been watching him, pure shooter, as you mentioned, 49% the year before, spaced the floor. Again, the Bucks got to be thinking about drafting around Giannis. What type of pieces do you want to put around Giannis? You talked about a potential replacement for Brook or some reinforcements at the 5, big fella out of Creighton. Like that idea as well. Are there any other guys that you had in mind that fit the mold for that 47 pick or the undrafted free agent? Like, do you project guys that potentially could be an undrafted free agent? And then if you do project them guys, who are some of the shooters that you have going in that slot that maybe the Bucks can think about?
Tyrese Proctor's like the first name that comes to mind from Duke. He's a guy that I actually thought he was going to be a first round pick after his freshman year at Duke, and then they moved him off the ball. To me, he's a connector, especially the way that Giannis played in the second half of the year where he had the ball in his hands a little bit more. Yeah. And Proctor would be like the bigger guard that is fine playing a complementary role. I mean, he played with Cooper Flagg this year. He can be a secondary ball handler, and he can knock down open shots, but he has the size to where he can defend both guard positions. So to me, he's like the type of guy that I would target as a complementary guy for Giannis. Then there's Chaz Lanier. I don't know if he's going to be available, but I mean, he's an incredible shooter. Yeah. I talked to a coach in the SEC, and I was asking, who's the better shooter between Kobe Brea and Chaz Lanier? And he thought Chaz Lanier because just the variety. He said Kobe is a guy that catch and shoot, but he said Chaz shot about 8 threes per game, but he had to score for Tennessee to win. So it was step backs, it was deep threes, it was coming off pin downs. Yep. And just the way that he was the focal point of the offense as a guy that most of his work is as a 3-point shooter, He thought that could translate a little bit better. So Chaz Lanier is an option. And then as far as bigs, you got to find a big that can space the floor.
Right.
And I mean, Brook is extremely rare. Like, I don't know too many guys in the NBA that can space the floor and protect the rim at the same time. And it's even crazier when you think that he was like the traditional low post scorer when he was in Brooklyn. He was tough down there.
Fact.
But as far as bigs that can space the floor, I think that's going to be a little bit more challenging because Brook is so unique, very underrated. I don't think people realize how good Brook Lopez is.
Thank you,
both
Rafael.
sides of his career, like prior to the Bucks and then in the second stage of his career. But I think it's probably easier to find some wings.
Let you put your GM hat on. You're John Horst of the Milwaukee Bucks. You're John Horst, and you talk about complementary players. I'm gonna throw a couple of names out there. You got a choice between these two guys at whatever pick it is, either 47 or maybe you move up. I don't know what you do, but these two guys are still on the board: Eric Dixon or Zion James.
I would go with Zion James. I like what Dixon brought to the table.
Yeah,
I mean he shot the ball extremely well. But I like Zion because I think that he's the type of guy that he may be able to guard fours. He may be able to guard threes. He can serve as, another ball handler. He shot the ball well. He played multiple roles when he was at Tulane. He was the guy. Then he goes to Duke, and he, plays a back seat behind Con Kneppel, who's, from the area, Milwaukee area. Cooper Flag, obviously. And he just impacts winning. And he doesn't need to score a lot of points. He doesn't need to have the ball in his hands a lot to make an impact. So that would be my choice.
Well, and I agree with you. And let me say this because now Eric Dixon, and I was looking at the video and I liked him. I liked what I was seeing, kind of a Michael Beasley, poor man's Michael Beasley, the big lefty. But then I'm looking at his numbers, 23 points a game. I mean, he's he needs the basketball. You know what I mean? He's used to having the basketball. And we talked about being able to fit in with Giannis and Dame when he comes back and whomever else. But you got to need someone. Like you talked about Cooper Flag and Kneppel at Duke and how well Zion James fit in with them. I love his versatility, man. I thought he was more, and you tell me, Rafael, where you come down on this. I thought he was similar to Chris Livingston in offensive skills, but the more video I watched on him, the more impressed I was with just the fluidity, the movement, the ability to score, the ability to get to his spots, create his own shot. I mean, he's an interesting offensive player.
Yeah, definitely interesting. And it's no knock on Eric Dixon. Eric Dixon is a little older at 24. He shot 40% from three. And it just depends on how you look at it. Some may look at Zion James as a jack of all trades, master of none. And sometimes that helps you. Sometimes it hurts you. Yeah. Dixon is unique. I mean, he's got that. I mean, he's built like the power forwards from your era. Like they were bruisers and strong. Like I just listened to a Rasheed Wallace podcast. He's talking about how strong Terry Cummings was, and just like that grown man strength. Eric Dixon had grown man strength in college, but he can shoot the ball. So maybe he could be. Maybe he could play a role as like he's on the court with Giannis and he just stands in the corner and he knocks down open threes. So it just depends.
Yeah. Are there any similarities between Zion defensively with PJ Tucker, in your opinion?
It could be. And, like PJ had to like completely change his game to become a defender. I mean, he was a scorer at Texas.
Bucket getter.
Yeah. Went overseas for about 8 years. I mean, his story is one of the best in my opinion, just how he just had to like totally transform his game and just simplify. Like, I'm going to make all my money. I'm going to just stand in the corner. That's it. I'm going to stand in the corner.
Hey, use his head.
Yeah. So if I'm Zion, that could be one of the guys I look at. Like, all right, yes, I may not be able to play the Swiss knife role in the NBA, but if I can use my strength and the way I can move my feet to defend all over the floor and just be an efficient corner three guy, if you can shoot in the corner, you can defend. That means you can complement the guys that are making $50 and $60 million. And if you can complement those guys, you can stick.
Have you seen enough of Ryan Nembhard to have an opinion on whether or not his ability will translate? And I see him as a backup, kind of Tyus Jones type. But his ability, I love his brother. I mean, Drew Nembhard in Indiana is one of my favorite players.
A lot of people didn't have him going first round either.
Yeah. But he's small. I mean, 6 feet. He's smaller. He's like 3 or 4 inches smaller. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, with the way the game, the physical aspect of the game is picked up, especially in the playoffs. I mean, smaller guards right now, the Van Vliets and guys like that, are they still going to be effective in today's NBA if they allow this kind of physical play?
What's interesting about that is when I look at a lot of the smaller guards in the NBA, they were drafted years ago.
Yes.
They found a way to stick, but it seems like teams don't like small guards now, and they're scared to draft them. Even though Rob Dillingham went number 7,
Right.
but some of those guys have proven they can stick. I just think teams are really scared to draft them. With Nembhard, so I am from Omaha, and Ryan did go to Creighton his first,
Right.
I think, 2 years. So I am familiar with him, and I was a little disappointed that he left Creighton, but he led the nation in assists, and he's a tough eval for me. Here's why.
Okay.
When you look at NBA drafts, you think about, all right, if there's 30 guys selected in the first round, maybe 20 are going to stick. I think Ryan Nembhard is going to stick, which means I should have him as a first round pick. And I was just having a conversation with someone earlier. I was looking at the 2014 draft. 15 of those guys are already out of the league, even though that was 10 years ago. 15 guys, quite a few of them were lottery picks. And Bogdan Bogdanovic was like the 27th pick, and he's still a rotation player for the Clippers. So you can make a case to say he's brought lottery value. So with that being said, Ryan Nembhard, nobody has him mocked as a first rounder, but he is someone that maybe we're overthinking it because I think he can't stick. Even if he's Corey Joseph, that means he's going to play 10 years. If you play 10 years, that means you should have
had
been
a hell
a
of a
first round
career.
pick.
He had a hell of a career, yeah.
He led the nation in assists. I don't think it was by mistake that when he got invited to the G League Elite Camp, I think 2 of the guys that got bumped up to the NBA Combine were his teammates because he knew how to get them the ball. The guy that I'm a big fan of, Maxime Reynaud, people were saying he was the big winner of the Combine. Well, who was his teammate? It was Ryan Nembhard. Ryan Nembhard knew that Reynaud had a 18-year-old kid that was playing in Spain, and he knew Reynaud was 22. He knew that there was a mismatch there, and he fed him the ball early. Reynaud had 20 points, and people said he was the winner of the Combine, but a lot of that was because Nembhard was smart enough to understand the mismatch and get him the ball. So I think he's going to stick. I think he's going to have a long career. Whether he plays a lot of minutes or not, he's the type of guy that you want to fill out the back end of your roster as your table setter, backup point guard.
A couple of guys I'm going to throw names out at you. I just want to get your take on Julian Reese from Maryland.
Well, he's got a famous sister. Angel Reese. So, I mean, I guess he will always be known as Angel Reese's brother. I like him. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to have to, as they say now, get it out the mud. And I don't think he'll be drafted. He's going to have to probably start off in the G League. And I think now, I think it's going to be even harder for guys to come from the G League because they make so much money in college basketball.
Yeah.
Like,
you were talking about a 13th pick that could make more going back to.
It was JT Toppin went back to Texas Tech. He got $4.1 million. That is the equivalent of what the 13th pick would get. So
I wonder what Landerborg, or what's the guy's name?
I already got about three and a half, something like that. Yeah.
That's crazy. That is absolutely nuts. All right. So Julian Reese definitely a 5. I mean, no way he can translate. He's a straight 5.
I didn't see him space the floor. I mean, him and Queen played together. Derek Queen, that is, and I mean they played 2 like traditional. Well, Derek Queen's not necessarily traditional, but they played. Some would say 2 5s together at Maryland. So maybe Reese can claw his way, but I mean he does rebound. He does some blue collar stuff. I just wonder with the G League, like how many guys are going from making millions in college, and the college facilities are great to like, man, you mean I'm making like $50,000 a year, and I gotta
the grind grind, man.
We're flying commercial. We're on Southwest.
All right, next guy, Kobe Sanders from Nevada.
I like Kobe. He came on my podcast. Has a similar story to Ryan in a sense, to where it wasn't really highly touted. He was, grew up to be groomed to be a point guard, and he grew to 6'9". And so a 6'9" point guard is always intriguing. And I think he gets drafted. I like the size. I like the passing. The one concern that I've had teams ask me was he tough enough? They just want to know, is he tough enough? He's a really nice guy, but they want to know, is there a little bit more, grit to him? And He played at, a mid-major, so there may be some concerns, like, has he done it enough against bigger schools, which, that doesn't always mean anything. There's been Dame Lillard came from a mid-major. But I like Kobe. I like what he brings to the table. To me, I don't know if a team is going to play him at the point, but maybe he could be like Delano Banton, who's playing for the Blazers. A big, toolsy wing that can handle the ball, and that when he's given opportunity, he plays well.
Where did Delano start? Toronto? I've liked him wherever he started. I forgot his first team, but he's always been a guy that's been on my radar, and I can't understand why he hasn't gotten the minutes and really blown up a little bit more than he has. But I like guys like that. I mean, 6'8", 6'9", can handle, can shoot a little bit, can do different things. But you're talking about playing point guard with Kobe Sanders, Zion James. I understand at the Chicago pre-draft, they put him at point guard, and he actually acquitted himself pretty well. So, that's another kind of feather in his cap, that ability to handle, to play make. How important is versatility, or should you be a specialist? Or does your versatility have to be off the chart type versatility to be a impactful second rounder where the Bucks are at 47?
That's a good question, because I think sometimes it depends on the team. Like, if you remember Boris Diaw, he was supposed to be like this big toolsy point guard, and he didn't play much in Atlanta. He goes to Phoenix, and they play him at the 5 when Amari was out, and then all of a sudden, like, the guard skill showed. So it was just the right fit. Goes to San Antonio, the right fit. Zion is a guy that I like the versatility. I think here's an example for you. Remember James Johnson?
Sure.
James was the 16th pick?
Wake Forest?
From Wake Forest.
Yeah.
He struggled finding his role with Chicago that drafted him. And I remember I was working in the G League at that time, and he was playing for the Rio Grande Valley Vipers, which is the Rockets G League team. And then I remember they played him at every position. They played him at the 1. They played him at the 5. And then you saw, like, all right, this is why he was so highly touted out of Wake Forest. And then once he got to Houston, he got another chance. Then he got to Miami, and he had some good years there, and he's still collecting checks. So it just took the right fit and the right team to understand what he does and to value him. And Zion, I think, could be like James Johnson in a sense. Like, he's big, he's strong, he can handle the ball. He shoots it better than James did when he first entered the league. But, maybe he could be like, best case scenario, Miami Heat James Johnson, without being able to kick the rim. I've heard all those stories that James Johnson can, like,
the
kick
karate
the rim.
tip. Yeah.
He's like the enforcer. He's like the tough guy.
Well, that was one of the smartest moves that the Pacers made, though, because they brought him on
because of the Bucks situation.
After the Bobby Portis, he broke the nose of the Isaiah Jackson. I think it was, broke his nose. That was a Giannis Ballgate game and all that stuff that was happening. They signed him a couple of days after that, and in my mind, I was like, okay, enough of all the shenanigans. From we're gonna see now who the real tough guys are, because you got a what an MMA 16-0 record dude on the roster for the Patriots. So that was a great move, man. Okay, now you also said something else that I loved, and I had to do some research on it. I didn't really do the research. We had Dylan Carter, our producer, do the research. But you talked about the last 35 years, 1990. First 3 picks in the NBA draft. You know how many of those first 3 picks in NBA drafts have been all-stars any point throughout their career? Yeah, it's 4. It's 4. We came up with 4.
Okay.
2016, Ben Simmons, Brandon Ingram, Jaylen Brown. 99, Elton Brand, Stevie Francis, Barron. 94, Big Dog, Jason Grant Hill. 92, Shaq, Alonzo, and Christian Laettner. It may have been, that's what we. But man, when you think about that, this thing is such a crapshoot. Yeah. I don't know. In terms of evaluations, is there an edge, one common denominator that you're looking for? Is it the backstory? Is it a combination of things? Is it toughness? Is it
physical
coaching? Is it the pedigree, high school, who you played for, college, who you played for? Any of that factor into to some of these guys that are on the margins right now?
You can't overthink it.
Yeah.
Sports is the only profession where you pay like an 18 and 19-year-old millions of dollars, or guys are at their financial peak. Like, in any other profession in the world outside of sports and entertainment, you get your millions when you have put in 20 years. And sports is like, you're really gambling. Like, all right, am I going to give this 19-year-old kid $12 million guaranteed, and I'm expecting him to be a professional and not like take his foot off the gas. I mean, like, to me, there's guys that their goal was to make it to the NBA. And if that was their goal, just to make it to the NBA, and once they've made it, like, maybe they take their foot off the gas. I have a friend of mine, he was a lottery pick and he's considered a bust. And he told me he lost his confidence. And once he lost his confidence, it was hard for him to get it back.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to predict if you're going to lose your confidence. It's just so many different factors why guys stick and why they don't maximize their potential. I'm a believer that if you're a lottery pick and you don't like live up to the expectations, it's not talent. It could be injuries. It could be, like it was your first time dealing with basketball adversity. We talked about that a little earlier. Like, it was your first time not being featured, or, you just had too many obligations with the family and like you didn't know how to handle it, because after all, you are a teenager and you're coming into all this money and all the pressure. So I think those are some of the factors. And I mean, even like and I don't mean to like harp on him, but Ben Simmons, I used to say all the time, I think Ben Simmons and Giannis have the same God-given talent. It's just the difference is between the ears. Like, Giannis came from nothing. Like, I mean, that comment Stephen A. Smith, man, I thought was ridiculous about him being an underachiever.
Ludicrous. Like, come on, bro.
I read Giannis's book, and I lived in Athens briefly, so I know where he came from. And maybe that drive, I mean, I don't think anybody really has Giannis's drive, but that type of drive, and he said he acts as if like this could all be gone tomorrow. It's hard to like not succeed when you play like you're broke. So I think some of that is just all factors, like who wants it, and injuries obviously, but it's a crapshoot.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, and Kris, I want you to chime in on this too. Maybe first, play like you're broke. So NIL money, you're making $1 million, $800,000, $500,000, $3 or $4 million if you're really good. Does that? Do you think it'd be more? You'd be more complacent with that and make it a little softer, or do you think the hunger is there to sustain that and even build upon that once you get to the league? Kris, I mean, you know some of these guys. How does that factor in?
Well, for me, it like Rafael has mentioned, it's a case by case basis. So it's like, who is getting the money? Is this his first taste of money? Is he coming from money? And then what does money do for you? Yeah. I mean, that's it. And it's up to the individual. Like, I think today's kids are wired a little differently, MJ. Guys,
how so?
Just think that. I think that they grow up understanding how to get to the bag. Like, so they have opportunities to get to the bag their entire life, way more frequently than any of us that grew up that's not part of this generation. So you could be 12, 13 years old. You can have your own Instagram merch shop right now, and you could be making $10,000 a month as a 13-year-old. So they have ways to get to the back. So their view of money, I think, is a little different. I think as soon as they get a little taste of money, this generation, I think that they want to keep doing whatever it is to get that money. I would hope. But then again, athletes are always wired differently. You never know who's going to respond, how it's going to respond. Man, it's such a tough call. I mean, it's really about your support system, in my opinion, your people around you. Like, when you look at who's going to stay hungry, who's going to keep inspiring you, who's going to stay in your head, who's willing to tell you the hard truths, who's willing to speak that truth to you. Hey, man, you're not working hard enough. Hey, man, you got to get up. Or who are you going to have people that are going to kind of enable you to do pick up bad habits or bad routine? Yeah.
NIL is interesting because what's the difference if a kid got it as a sophomore in college or he got it in the NBA? You're still 19, you're still 20, you got the money. Right. I actually think it probably helps kids make more sound decisions. And I mean, this is a whole different subject, but I've been doing some research and there's not a lot of kids from the inner city anymore. I heard you talk about this, Rob. I heard you talk about this as far as overseas and Turkey being a rich man's sport, basketball. Just expand on some of your research and some of the items that you came up with.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
So I'm 45 years old. So when I grew up playing basketball, nobody had a trainer. You played outside, which means the playing field was even, whether you were rich or you were poor. Everybody got their game outside. Now, if you drive by courts in any city, you're not going to see kids playing. Everybody's training. They have a trainer. And trainers, I mean, basketball has been monetized. Trainers cost money. If you want to train 3 times a week and the person is charging $50 a session, that's $150 a week. That's going to add up to what, $600 a month?
Yeah.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
And that's on the low end.
6,000, 7,000
Yeah.
a
So
year.
I just think that like some of the kids from the inner city just don't have a chance. Like, where can you get better if you're not playing outside and you don't have the resources? So on one hand, I think that a lot of the kids that are making it now come from families that have resources. So they're not forced to like leave school early because they got to take care of mom. Because mom, like I talked to a parent recently and his son was a second round pick. And he was like, well, you know what? My son doesn't have the pressure of having to buy mom a house. He already got a house. We're not moving. I talked to another parent a couple years ago. Son was a lottery pick. He doesn't have to buy us a house. We got a house.
Yeah.
So NIL allows you, if you're not ready, to probably develop a little longer because you're not thinking like, all right, I got to get mom out the hood, man. She's struggling. Her lights aren't on. And I'm in school and I'm eating sandwiches, even though I think some of the guys, when they talk about how broke they were in college, I think some of that is
lies.
Serve sandwiches. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, right, bro.
You went to an SEC school. You mean to tell me you're eating sandwiches? Right. I think it just sounds good. But I do think NIL allows guys to make sounder decisions and it allows you to say, I'm gonna stay in school and get better, as opposed to like, all right, I'm going to risk being the 50th pick because my name is on boards. And I know it's no guarantee. It's not a guaranteed contract. So I actually like it because, like I said, it allows players to take their time to get to the league.
What was the conclusion of when you studied it? What do you say? Is less guys from the from meager beginning?
Yeah. I mean,
it's a
look
lot
now,
less.
like,
those numbers are down. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, when you're watching the draft, if a guy comes from a bad background, they're going to highlight that. Yeah.
Right.
His dad was in jail.
AJ Johnson had a tough upbringing, lived in motels out here and came to Taft High School with Derek Taylor. And I mean, so there's still some that kind of,
but they will highlight that, but you're not seeing as many people highlighting that. Even when you watch the draft, and I think it's a good thing. I grew up with my mom and my dad.
Yeah.
You're seeing like the mom and the dads at the green room. So I do think it is a good thing that, kids have, they have sound advice from their parents, but I also feel like on the flip side of it, because basketball has been so heavily monetized, if you don't have those resources and you're not like special,
right,
it's harder for you to make it. But as far as Turkey, it was interesting because it was a rich kid sport. Like I think Enes Kanter, his parents are doctors. Like that was very interesting to me how that.
Well, I actually played in Turkey for a hot minute. Back
what
in
city?
Ankara.
Okay, I've been there. The capital.
Yeah, I was in Ankara.
I lived in Istanbul for a year.
I spent a lot of time in Istanbul. Then I was in another city called Bodrum, which is like by the beach. It's like on the water.
Isn't that the most underrated place in the world?
Easily. People don't know what time it is. Wait, people don't know what time it is. Hey, I got a story for another podcast about my experience over there, but it was
a pop star or something.
The Madonna of Turkey. That's for another
got a pop star or something.
Came up, bro. That's for another podcast.
Got chased out of Italy by the mafioso or something.
But listen. No. So this conversation, guys, I wanted to see if this makes any kind of sense. So when you're talking about the inner city guy that the NBA used to kind of look at, the hard upbringing, the dog,
Get on the glory. Yes.
I like that.
Now, who replaces them? Now, when we look at overseas and you look at some of the countries, your Serbias, some of these countries that aren't necessarily have the glitz and the glamour as some of these other European countries. Now, are they replacing sort of this inner city guy as sort of this concept of a dog that came up from a tough upbringing, a war-torn country? Does that make any sense to you guys?
No, it does. It does make sense because, when people talk about European players, especially if you understand Europe, a kid from Italy is going to be seen different than a kid from Serbia. If a kid from Bosnia, they go, oh man, he's tough.
Right.
A kid from Italy, they go, oh man, he's finesse. You know what I mean? So there is a difference. I just think it's a wider pool of candidates for teams to choose from. And I'm a basketball junkie, and I remember. You guys remember Street Smiths? Every year, Street Smiths, it was 8 guys from New York.
The Bible, the
yeah, it was
Bible.
A bunch of guys from New York, from Chicago.
Eight All-American teams in high school. Yes.
Yeah, and now when you look at it, it's like, where are the guys from New York and where are the guys from Chicago? I think
where's Christ the King and where's okay.
So I just think the game is different. Like I was at Nike EYBL a few weeks ago. And it's no knock on Utah, but it was like this team from Utah had a better record than
the
team from
prospects.
Chicago.
Yeah, they ballers.
Yeah, you know about the Utah prospects.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And so, and I just I really want to really dive into it because it's fascinating to me. It's just different from when I grew up.
I mean, quick story for you, Rafael. So I'm coaching AAU. Chris's junior year in high school. We got a bunch of inner city kids. You talk about inner city. We got Crenshaw. We got Compton. We got Watts. We got Westchester. We got it all. We cannot beat the Utah Rebels. This little team, Alex Jensen was their center.
He's a coach now. He's a coach now.
Yeah. But they had a couple little guards that never did anything. And I talked to the coaches, and they told me that they identify, much like European, they identify potentially good players at a young age. They put them through plyometrics, all this stuff I hadn't heard of back in the mid 90s when we played, early 90s when we were playing. But I don't know. I just digress. But I just when you talk about Utah and kind of what they were doing, and then you see the results of that. Now the Europeans are doing the same thing, identifying talent early and then making sure that they get all the specialized individual instruction.
And guess who's not doing it? And to my final point, guess who's not doing it as much? United States. And we wonder why America is being seen as falling behind as far as in the talent race. Yeah. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. Rafi, I want to get your opinion. This is kind of based on this idea that Giannis kind of broached about having the top Europeans play against the top Americans in the All-Star game. My question to you, do you feel like the American basketball player has fallen behind the European basketball player in terms of development?
That's a good question. I've thought about this a lot. I'll say one of the differences, and I remember asking a coach once, what did he see the differences was? He says, well, in Europe, basketball is not the main sport. So if you have kids that are interested in basketball, that's all you have to work with. So you have to develop them and spend time. He says in America, you have so much talent. You have a tryout, and you pick the players from your tryout, and then in AAU basketball, let's say you guys lose your first weekend on the session, you cut a couple guys, you bring in new guys. So you don't have to really spend time and develop. And then when you look at just AAU basketball, and I'm not one of these people that bashes AAU basketball. I absolutely don't like when people talk about it because there's a lot of good in travel basketball. You're getting kids out of their neighborhood. They're meeting different people. Think about how many kids don't even know how to pack a suitcase or pack a toothbrush. Or I think AAU basketball teaches you that outside of just the basketball stuff. So with that being said, the teams change all the time. You don't really have to develop. And then they got the rules where you can play on a team long as the states touch each other. So, I live in Dallas, and the Dallas team could have a kid from Oklahoma. And then they'll get strategic, like a team from Memphis will put their team in West Memphis, Arkansas, because Arkansas touches Texas, and then you can go get kids from Houston to play on the Memphis team. And so you don't have to develop. You're just trying to win. You're trying to win because if you win, you get to keep your Nike contract or your Adidas contract, and you get to stay on the circuit, and you just all right, I'm just going to keep getting the best player and the best player. And in Europe, they don't have a big pool to choose from because you got to think their countries are like our states.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is develop. And one of the things that, and I can be long-winded about this. I went to Spain 2023, and I went to a bunch of different practices, and I saw them doing the 3-on-2, 2-on-1 drills and the passing drills. And they were teaching creativity. They were teaching underhand scoop passes, overhead passes. And I remember when I was in 9th grade, I was left-handed. I wasn't a really good basketball player, but I was in 9th grade. I was all left-hand, all left-hand.
Yeah.
And I got a steal on the left side of the court, and I was in transition, and the defender was going to cut me off. And I threw a behind-the-back pass, and I hit my teammate in a stride, and he made a layup, right-hand layup. And my
Don't you
coach called a
those-
timeout, yelled at me, and I
Who
couldn't
you think you are,
explain to
Travis
him.
Best?
Yeah. Kenny Anderson. That was it. He thought I was Kenny Anderson. And I was trying to explain to him, and I couldn't explain, like, that's the only pass I could throw because by the time I didn't have a right hand at all and my momentum, and I wasn't trying to be flashy, but he thought I was trying to show off. And when I went to Spain, I thought about, like, they're teaching their philosophy is the quickest pass. I don't care the angle. You don't need to set your feet and throw a two-hand chest pass. If it's one hand, if it's underhand. And when you think about, like, Spanish players, they all have a little flair to them in passing, like Rubio, overhead. And
Navarro,
it's because
all the wrong.
Everything they're teaching is the fastest pass, the fastest pass, the fastest pass. So I thought that philosophy was different because I don't think we teach that. And then everybody had to work on passing. Like, they don't have lob threats there. So if you're a big, you got to catch the ball. You got to be able to, like, find a cutter in the high post. So I think because they don't have as much natural talent there, they have to really, really hone in on fundamentals.
Right. Okay. So let's. I mean, we're not going to keep you all day, but I want to bring it back to the draft. You're talking about bigs and mobility. You mentioned a guy that I had to go and look at just to see what was going on. Hanson Yang.
Yes.
Hanson Yang, and he was impressive. 6'7", 250. Where is he at right now in terms of personnel opinions about him and how he's going to translate? You mentioned Zach, Edey, the big fella from where Purdue or wherever, but where's Hanson Yang at in terms of people's minds?
I like him. I don't think Brooklyn should leave the draft without him. They have 4 first-round picks.
Wow.
So when you have 4 first-round picks and like 26 and 27, you can swing for the fences. And so he's a guy that I first saw him probably 2 years ago at a FIBA U18 tournament, and he's tough. He's physical. He's not a gentle giant. And I've lived in China, and I know, like, sometimes if you're big in China, it's cultural to be gentle. You know what I mean? Like, it's cultural. You're not supposed to impose your will on smaller people. That's just part of their culture. He's not like that. He's physical. I mean, he's throwing his shoulders, but he's real skilled. He reminds me of a old school throwback big with, counter moves. He's got little Kevin McHale shoulder fakes and up and unders, but he's a really good passer. Like, that might be his best asset is his passing. So I like him. I just think the adjustment for him is the speed of the game and just, obviously on top of, like, the cultural differences. But I think he can play. I really do think that he's an NBA player.
Rock, where can the people subscribe? Because I subscribe to your NBA Big Board Substack.
Thank you.
Where can people, and then your brother, James, you guys do something together, right? You guys are doing all this together, right?
Yeah, we have a podcast, NBA Big Board.
Okay. Yep. And we can find that on YouTube. And
Yep. Just type in NBA Big Board, whether it's the newsletter or the podcast.
Okay.
Sweet.
Okay, let me put a period on this. So when that team I was coaching with Kris and Utah Rebels, we did beat them in the semifinals of May Fisher's Easter Classic. And me and my other co-coach, Ed Waters, who coaches Crenshaw High now, Maxine Waters' son. But we told our guys, we've lost to these Utah Rebels 8 times in a row, Rafael. This is our championship. And we went out and beat them. And then we lost in the championship to a team with Darnell McCullough and Tremaine Folks and these other guys, a bunch of ringers and all that. And on the ride home from Vegas, all these guys were saying well, we won our championship. You said the semis was our championship, and so we won the champion. It was AAU basketball, the bonding that goes on with AAU basketball, man. It was a great trip, man. But look, man, we appreciate you stopping by. NBA Big Board. This guy here really does a great job breaking down everything NBA. Rafael Barlowe and his brother James. Check him out. Thank you, man, for coming by here, District. And please join us again. Let's do it again, man. Loved having you on.
Anytime. This could have went on for 3 hours. I would have been fine.
Does that Sox hat have anything to do with the Pope? I'm just curious. Maybe
no. It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't have anything to do with the LA. The Rolling.
I didn't. I don't want to go there. That's Chris's neighborhood. Anyway, all right, man. Appreciate you. Thank you, man. Thank you.
All right, have a good one.
All right, Rafael.
All right, here, District, captain of this vessel, Marques Johnson, along with my son, Kris Johnson. I want to thank Rafael Barlowe, owner and director of scouting, NBA Big Board. Man, I love that conversation we had with Rafael, Kris. I mean, just not only the draft stuff, but that's big right now, but also just his perspective in terms of development and the European game and all that stuff, man. He had some great takes.
Yeah, he's been around for a while. I've been following him. For about the last 10 years. One of the most insightful, just kind of different basketball scouting minds that isn't just, normal like everybody else. He kind of brings a different perspective. I love it.
Yeah, and you know who else is like that? Without diverting too far from what we're talking about, but I was Iman Shumpert. I was listening to him and Wendy.
Really? You thought that was like everything he was saying? Like, I'm used to having those type of basketball conversations about NBA, so it didn't really strike me as anything that was like really like savant-ish. Oh, Halliburton goes side to side. I mean, like, you guys, like, what are you guys not used to? You're used to the drama.
No. Well, yeah. And that's the thing. It was just good basketball, just good basketball strategy.
No, 100%.
Pre-switching and all. Just a lot of good basketball strategy conversation
100%.
that I thought was right on the money. So I like listening to him. But right now, we want to tell you that you can join us on the Fantastic Voyage by liking this episode and leaving us a comment on the Bucks official YouTube channel.
Yep, you can subscribe to Here District on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and also follow at Bucks Plus Audio on Twitter.
And I ran into a couple of young ladies that follow us and love our show. I was out at the Hampton Hills Country Club, aka Lincoln Park Golf Course, Hampton Hills on Hampton Avenue, and so these ladies let me go in front of them. They were a foursome, and so I was by myself, or was I with Shiloh?
Were there turkeys?
I was by myself. A bunch of turkeys out there. The whole, how Hampton Hills Country Club is. A bunch of turkeys running around. I just missed a couple. Unfortunately, I could have had dinner for that night. But anyway, but two ladies, Sally LaRosa and Patty Cotter.
Sally and Patty
came up to me and said, "We love your show." Now, when she said that, Chris,
you thought?
I thought what? See how well you know your dad. Father's Day just passed by.
The banana in the tailpipe?
No. And sometimes, they're talking about Josiah and Gilbert Arenas and that show and I love you. I love you. I love your son's podcast. And it's normally talking about Josiah. But when she came to me and said, "I love your podcast," and then she said, and that reference to Hampton Hills Country Club just gets us cracking up every time. So we want to give a special shout out to Sally and Patty, Sally LaRosa and Patty Cotter for being big fans of the show. Now, speaking of Father's Day, I don't know if you're a big fan of Gilly the King, but I caught him. This is the King or the Kid?
The Kid.
The Kid. Gilly the Kid. Okay, Gilly the Kid. So I caught the Kid talking about Father's Day. And you'd have to go and find that clip and all that. We're not going to pay to run it on our show. But he was talking about it. I was coming off an airplane flight, and the pilot came on, and he's like, "I want to say congratulations to all the fathers." And nobody on that mofo clapped. Nobody said nothing. I was on a similar flight, Mother's Day. He said, "I want to give a shout-out to all the mothers," and everybody stood up and applauded. Nobody cares about Father's Day. We get some funky cologne. We get a tie. We don't even wear suits. He just went on this whole rant, man, about Father's Day.
Yeah.
First of all, how was your Father's Day? Did you have a good Father's Day? What'd you do on Father's Day?
I mean, it was cool. I talked. Yeah. I didn't go nowhere. I didn't do nothing.
Okay.
I didn't, not because I couldn't, but I didn't feel like it.
Yeah. Okay.
Will wanted to take me to lunch, but I was like, he took me out the weekend before.
Right.
So
Okay.
I was kind of like,
okay,
we'll treat last weekend as our Father's Day lunch.
Yeah, and for me the same thing. I mean, so I had Shiloh. We flew to Milwaukee from Los Angeles on Saturday. Yeah, on Saturday before Father's Day. Sunday we worked out. Worked out twice, really hard, and then we went to a brunch at my favorite brunch spot here in Milwaukee, Sam's Jazz Cafe.
Is that the spot you took me with the wings over on the north side?
It's out, yeah. It's close to Hampton Hills Country Club, as a matter of fact.
Over on the north side?
Sam's Jazz Cafe. But we got there, Mr. B let us in, and we got there, the website said 2:30 it closed. We got there at 1:40, and he saw me at the door, like, "Yeah, I knew you was here with your daughter for Father's Day." But I had the wings and the grits and the biscuits and all that, and Shiloh had the wings and the waffles.
Yeah, the wings are off the hook.
And the last point about Father's Day. And this happened this year for the first time for me. I got all these greetings, And it's this whole thing about the cool Black Father's Day greetings now that just kind of caught me by surprise. Like, I mean, just a plethora of cool Black Father's Day greetings. I don't know if we got something we could flash on the screen here and show just kind of the roster of cool Black Father's Day greetings, man.
But I really think that those Father's Day greetings that you receive are really indicative of your age group, your demographic, and like how you grew, like, you know, the era you grew up in.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get not one Father's Day greeting like that at all.
I never got them before. I mean, this is a first. I mean, it's almost like this year, I don't know, they just came out of nowhere.
But I want to talk about the Gilly thing because
Okay.
I find it interesting that, you know, it's so when you talk about when Gilly is in Black culture, right? A lot of times, a lot of Black people grew up with just mama in the house.
Right.
Mama,
Sure. Single mom household. Sure.
So what you'll get in our community, you get a lot of people on Father's Day talking about shouting out mothers. Okay, it's like a blatant the moms, you know,
Right.
because daddy wasn't there, and so I think the sentiment that's kind of permeated to popular American culture is that same sentiment. It's like it's almost like, screw dad.
Yeah.
He'll get over it. He's a man. I don't really got to do nothing for him. But if I miss mom on Mother's Day, I'll never hear the end of it.
Yeah.
Dad will let it go. Dad is cool. So I think that's the difference in Father's Day and Mother's Day. Dad's a lot cool.
Well, and some of my favorite Father's Day gifts are not the ties and the colognes, but it's those little collages that you all make for me as kids when you're in first grade. I found one from Shiloh, you know, a little tie that opens up on the cardboard. Josh, my 36-year-old son just turned 36 on the 16th of this month. I found one that he made me when he was in the second or third grade, just stashed away someplace. I don't throw them away. I keep all that stuff. So those little corny Father's Day collages.
So where's the ones I made you?
Well, I mean, that was like 50 years ago.
If you said you don't throw them away, that means forever. That doesn't mean a time limit.
I've moved 10 times since then. But I've been in this same house like 25 years, so I got all that stuff kind of centrally located.
It's probably in the storage.
Milwaukee, San Francisco, Italy, we've been all over the place, man. So
yeah, we have.
It is, man. It is what it is.
Yeah,
all right, man. Listen, man, great show. Appreciate everything that you do for the Here District, and we appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all out there for checking us out, and man, we'll see you next week, Here District.
This has been a Bucks Plus audio production.